Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. China. A lot of things are happening within China, and Xi Jinping seems to be changing a lot of things. Go back in history, the last time this happened, it was Mao Zedong getting into the Cultural Revolution. The question I ask is China going through a second one? And I ask this question to our go to general on China and many other things, on especially on a Saturday afternoon. Major General Rajiv Narayanan. Sir, good afternoon and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Adi. Thank you to be back again. Yes, it is a new phase coming into China. Current youth have not seen this. The old people would have seen it.
The
And I
grandfathers, yes,
will,
sir.
pardon?
The grandfathers, yes, sir.
Yeah, the old people have seen it and been through it, lived through it. And I link it also to the three policies that he has thrown out, a new deception, I would say, and it's not working. And concurrently, he's trying to do now. He's been attempting to do it earlier, but now I think he's going to enforce it.
Hmm.
See, uh, what we have to understand, can we get the first slide up? Deception is in the DNA of China. It is in the DNA. It won't change. And immediately after the revolution was over, Xi Jinping had taken 21 generals of the PLA to sift through. And through these, they had done the detailed study of the, normally they call it the unsettled period. Some people say 400 BC to 200, 300 BC. Some link it from 800 BC to somewhere around 200 BC, because it was a period of broken kingdoms and fighting against each other, where a lot of them had used deception to defeat other
There
uh,
others, yes, sir.
rivals.
Hmm.
And that was
Establish the
compiled
war.
and created into a book called 36 Stratagems, which is taught. And there are 6 chapters in that. Each chapter has six
Six.
stratagems for that particular type of situation. And so 6 are 36. So this is taught, ingrained, and it is followed. So every time something, what they were following, uh, you could say, gets stalled, they will come up with a new smoke screen. And of course, from there we move to the push to send the graduates to work in the rural areas, which was what was done by Mao in his cultural revolution. Could we go to the next slide? I will link the two stratagems used. Stratagems when in a superior position. This is chapter 1. Okay. It is also called winning stratagem.
Hmm.
In that, the first stratagem, cross the sea under camouflage. It is also translated as deceive the heavens to cross the ocean. In the sense, it says that whatever you're going to do it under a smoke screen exactly in front. The machinations are better concealed in the open.
Hmm.
And these, I link the GDI and the GSI and the GCI and tell you how these are machinations out in the open, nothing less. Then the other is stratagems for attack. This is chapter 3. Stratagems. Toss out a glazed tile to draw a jade. Means you present something superficial which the other feels has value and bites it. But you actually get the real worth of it. It is like when you're fishing, angling. So what do you do? It's a spinning, glinting sort of a fish hook with some sort of a bait in it. And the fish catches it thinking it has food, something different, and it's caught, ensnared. So he has done it earlier with BRI, telling it it's a win-win. Now everybody has got to know it is different. So now he is coming up with some new ones. And
Initiatives.
the best part is they talk about the GDI, Development Index, Global Development Index, GSI, Global Security Index, GCI, Global Civilization Index, Initiative, on four wants: development, security, peace, and governance. None of which either Xi or China provides for. As it happens, even to, he is not even being able to provide today in his own country. बाहर का तो छोड़ दो, अंदर भी इसी चीज के वांदे लगे हुए. Outside we know what development and what security and peace they talk about. So let us look at what are his dilemmas. Next slide. First is his sliding economy, and now he has no clue what he is going to do. And I don't think even the people of China would be comfortable, because his Politburo Standing Committee are all novices. They have no clue. And Li Qiang, who's going to be the premier, has no clue. He's trying to bring in the experts and others into these committees to help them, but I really don't know whether anybody who is this expert, because he looks more at loyalty towards him than being an expert in the field. BRI is sinking. There's nothing progress. Demographic decline, we all know. Most important is lack of jobs.
Big problem.
Big problem. Companies are all shutting down. So there is no new companies coming up. The existing companies are all shutting down. There are, when you read the write-ups which come up, even less in Global Times, more in South China Morning Post, it indicates towards internal fissures within the CPC. They are not too happy. It is not that they are not happy they openly with his third term, but maybe they are not happy with the direction in which they feel he's taking China.
Hmm. Hmm.
We all know the discontent amongst the youth and the population. There is global isolation, there is lack of trust. And that trust broke because of BRI, where he sold it to people that you will benefit, and people are seeing that their economy has gone into decline thanks to BRI. And like I've said earlier and oft repeated, trust is like a clay pot. You break it, you can't fix it. You got to
Can't.
remold the clay again. And economically, there is decoupling of the high-end technology from China. And for the others, they are the West are terming friend shoring and near shoring.
Hmm.
So they don't look on, which is a very important term psychologically if you look at it. That means they don't look at China as a friend. So they're looking at other nations in the region where they're going to take it out, which is friend shoring. Like Sony is taking out from China, going to Thailand. Friend shoring, near shoring. Okay. Now, in the face of this, he's finding a rising India with global acceptance and heft. All narratives and others aside, which the West is doing, but there is still a growing acceptance of India. And
Okay.
what all he has done in his first two terms and the way he's pushed himself into the third term, it looks like he's facing a multiple front threat himself. There is problems he has created on his eastern seaboard, his own creation. The problems that he has created towards the south along LAC, his own creation. Now, Pakistan having sunk and Taliban not under control is from the south. He is also worried about a terror threat which is likely to come, can come. There are internal fissures within the populace and his own people. And all this has happened under a false sense of being really strong and being able to do many things at the same time, and that I'm rising.
Hmm.
That bubble which was there, that I'm strong and growing, and yeah, regionally you may be strong, but to say that I'm so strong I can handle multiple fronts, I think that bubble has burst. That bubble has burst, but uh, the point is that very accept it. You see, the problem he faces with India is he has always been trying to sell to the region and at large that the way for growth is his model, way for governance is his model, how to deal with neighbors and everybody is his model. Now, here is a rising India which has a totally different ideology. It has a and so it has a different governance model. It has a totally different economic growth model. It has a totally different foreign policy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, Sagar, and other things. Now, this becomes a biggest challenge. You are growing with a contrarian philosophies in every field, and he can't hide this from his people.
Hmm.
And though you felt that you were rising, you are declining. And here is a country with totally contrarian and rising. Only performing economy today.
Hmm.
And IMF and World Bank are looking at India to help the global economy. Okay. Now, under this backdrop, let us look at these new smoke screens that he has thrown forward. No, within this, I'll also add the challenge is also US and West, in the sense that their ideology is different, their growth model is different, their foreign policy may be something similar, that it is only us we need to rise, others should not rise, we can poach. But their uh, internal economic model is very different from the Chinese. So, though they are facing recession, but they are all looking towards India for help. They're
China
not looking
can't.
to China for help.
Hmm.
And that will hurt him a lot. Okay. So, you find that the wolf warriorism, BRI, everything has been a no go. So I say that these policies were a smokescreen, especially the GSI and the GCI. A global development initiative is slightly different. That was the first one. So can we go to the next slide? Yeah. Now this he proposed it in 2021. Okay. But there's been no major movement
Movement, yeah.
because this looks more as a variation to BRI. Along with
Re-
that, he wanted to push his vaccine schemes, which were failing. Now you look at the principles, what he says, development as a priority. Who will trust him when BRI gave it as a development project and all the countries' economy are sinking? People-centered approach. It is China who dictates what is to be done. There's nothing
Which people?
people-centered.
Which people
No
centered?
people. There's no people-centered. It's centered on Han
Chinese.
people-centered.
Hmm.
Right? No, no, Chinese नहीं, Han people-centered. लीव नो कंट्री नो पर्सन बिहाइंड. यार तुमने तो जिस जिस पे हाथ डाला था उनके सबके इकोनॉमी की तो वाट लग गई. दे आर लेफ्ट बिहाइंड. हार्मनी बिटवीन ह्यूमन एंड नेचर एनवायरमेंट तो यू डोंट इवन बॉदर. Result oriented actions, yeah, whatever results you want so that you can create them as your vassals, that is oriented. Food security, it's for yourself. You're not looking at their food security. Like I said, pandemic financing for development, you're giving it commercial loans. So let us analyze it a step further. Yeah, next.
Can I
He's
one thing?
Yeah, he linked it to UN SDG.
That's what I
And
wanted to ask.
not linked to BRI. So इसी को तोड़ूंगा मैं next slide.
Now, इसमें जो UN SDG, he's linked that, sir. But he does not talk about how is he going to actually finance this.
How can he? Like he said, this is a smoke screen. Na? I'll tell you why. When we go to the next slide, he's lying when he says, pardon my language, it's harsh. He's totally lying that GDI and BRI are not linked. Because when all the banks have analyzed the SDG, this is what is primarily required: infrastructure, power, transport, telecom network, and water and sanitization.
Exactly.
5 नंबर को छोड़ के पहले 4 तो सारे तुम्हारे उसमें है, BRI में है,
BRI.
which has
Exactly.
created all the problems. So how are you telling these are not linked? Your GDI will go nowhere without BRI. Unless BRI helps these countries, BRI is not helping these countries. So why will anybody take this GDI, which means nothing to
Exactly.
them? So that's why I said that this is a sugar coating pill for the BRI. कि भाई हाँ GDI का somebody buys the hook and says अच्छा GDI कर लो. Now GDI में he says the funding is not with BRI. So he'll say, but GDI ये करने के पहले whatever core and other principles I have given, I need to first bring in BRI to do this for you. You back to
Ah,
square one.
that's
You
the
back to
game.
square one. कि मैं पहले ये करता हूँ उसके ऊपर ये राइड करेगा.
Ah. Pale, I'll steal everything you have. After that, I will
हाँ,
make you a slave. Nothing else.
हाँ, that's it. So you find, and telecom network is digital Silk Route, where he is able to help the autocratic ruler if there is there in that country to control the and surveil the people. So it is. That's why I said right in the beginning, it is a smoke screen to cover for BRI. Now let us look at the next one, which he talks about is the Global Security Initiative. April 2022. Huh? Think about it. Ukraine war has started. Okay. But when you read the fine print, Boao Forum में दिया था, this is an extension of his regional security architecture, which he had mentioned in SICA, that is the Conference on Interaction and Confidence Building Measures in Asia, 2014. वो regional से अब global पे ले आया है. You see, what he saw at this time, Quad was strengthening, AUKUS had come in, US was very aggressive on his eastern seaboard. Nancy Pelosi visit was to take place and all that was to take place. And India had stood up to the pushback, and general acceptance by then had taken place that okay, India कुछ ज़्यादा नहीं, हाँ बोलेंगे but करते रहेगा India, because after all India was and still is taking crude from Russia, refining it and selling it back to Europe and
Yeah.
the others,
So you
right?
got
So
a
that they can
insurance
show that,
policy.
yeah, they can show that we are not buying oil from Russia, but it is coming from India. ठीक है, but they didn't accept it from China. ठीक है ना? So officially ये बोलता है uphold the principle of indivisible security, build a balanced, effective and sustainable security architecture. He tried it in Sika. उसकी दादागिरी जो साउथ चाइना सी में किया और बाकी जगह किया, no, but they are no takers. And oppose the building of national security on the basis of insecurity in other countries. You are the one who's creating insecurities in other countries. The Chinese architecture is all built on geo-economic coercion,
Yes.
because as its CNP increases, it adjusts its borders. Okay, and कोई ट्रीटी रेस्पेक्ट नहीं करता. जैसी सीएनपी बढ़ गया वो ट्रीटी फाड़ देता है, बोलता है अब ये इतना मेरा है, अब आके बात कर लो. So which treaty, who will accept to any treaty that he gives? Because they don't know that at a future date, 5-10 years from now, will he still agree to that treaty? And whatever he agrees to, everything is tilted only towards China.
China.
Okay. So नो टेकर्स. ग्लोबल साउथ ने तो कुछ बोला ही नहीं उसको. दे आर नो टेकर्स. अब कुछ नहीं हो रहा है. ही मैनेज टू वैंगल अ वे दिस ईयर टू गेट बी इन द लाइमलाइट कि भाई सऊदी अरेबिया एंड ईरान के बीच में रैप्रोचमा करा रहा हूँ. दो इट वाज ओनली फॉर reopening of diplomatic channels, nothing else. And I'm surprised that if it was for reopening of diplomatic channels, how come the foreign ministers or foreign secretaries were not there? NSA साइन कर रहा है. दोनों साइड के NSA साइन कर रहे हैं. Okay, so can we go to the next? So he comes out with a GCI, the new
ना
one.
सॉरी बट सर नाम बड़े जबरदस्त लगता है, बाकी सब
Yeah,
ठीक है. I mean, नाम शाम
वो
पूरा
वान होनिंग है ना. वान होनिंग है ना. वो तो जियान जेमिन के टाइम से नाम देने में. अब तो ही द पास मास्टर इन डिसेप्शन एंड गिविंग न्यू
वन
कॉइनिंग
बेल्ट
न्यू फ्रेज.
वन रोड. आई मीन नाम देखो सर. आई मीन इनोवेशन.
बट इट्स लाफेबल. रोड कहाँ है? सी के
बेल्ट का
ऊपर है. मैरीटाइम सिल्क रूट को बोल रहा है. मैरीटाइम रूट को बोल रहा है रोड. और जो कॉन्टिनेंट के जमीन के ऊपर जा रहा है उसको बेल्ट बोल रहा है.
बेल्ट बोलता है.
ठीक है. नाउ these are terms which he has been using since 2013. सबसे पहले था जो नंबर 2 में लिखा है, कम्युनिटी ऑफ शेयर्ड डेस्टिनी और कम्युनिटी ऑफ कॉमन डेस्टिनी, BRI फोरम. राइट. नहीं, वो तो 2017 में शेयर्ड से कॉमन कर दिया. बट द वरीसम थिंग व्हाट पीपल डोंट रियलाइज इज दैट there is a ancient view of China of how they view the world, the various concentric circles, right? And they still follow that. The royal and domain, princely domain, pacification zone, and then you have the allied barbarians and zone of savagery. So we are all barbarians and savages. So which common destiny is he talking about? What civilizational connect? Is it civilization versus barbarians and savages? In India, we've heard it before. And a lot of countries who colonized, where the white people came to say that they were civilized and you were savages. This is the same language he's going to. If you, in one side, you're teaching your students that this is how the world is. The rest, civilization is useless. So what civilization connect are you talking about? Which common destiny are you talking about? Now that becomes worrisome. Are you talking of sinicization of the region and beyond? You're already trying to do it in Xinjiang and Tibet, destroying all their ancient. If you're talking of a civilizational connect, then why aren't you accepting the civilizational connect within your own boundaries? You're destroying both their cultures. So you see, it is these issues which make it difficult for people today to swallow. This is not the 90s and 2000s where you could sell something and move away. No, people have become very aware of what it is. Can we go next? Given some explanations there. Yeah. Old policies kya the? BRI. You had a Wuhan COVID pandemic and its handling, how he handled the wolf warriors to make sure that people don't point a finger at them. You disrupted the global supply chain willingly and unwittingly. Unwittingly when the pandemic spread, willingly when somebody was pointing finger at you. Like when Australia said there must be a investigation into the source of the pandemic, he stopped picking up iron ore from them.
Yeah. Wine, iron ore, grapes.
Yeah. Even for Philippines, when they went to the ICJ. For the Scarborough shoals, Officially, he didn't do it, but told his people, you will not pick up the plantains. Bulk of the plantains used to come there, rot ho gaya. Right? Now, what has happened with all this is like what I had mentioned: global isolation, declining economy, and decoupling. So now you're bringing in new policies, which I term as wolf in sheep's clothing. But you forget, a leopard can never change its spots. But
Mm.
for him, I would say a chameleon changes colors to blend with its surroundings. I'm calling him now not a dragon, but a chameleon. That means he's sinking from a huge dragon into a small chameleon. And he will change colors to blend with his surrounding. That's how chameleons get their prey. Na? Blend into the surrounding, the unsuspecting prey comes there, पकड़ लेगा. तो बीआरआई में तो अनसस्पेक्टिंग काफी आ गए थे. अब तो वो हिंदी में कहावत है ना, दूध का जला छाछ भी फूक के पीता है. Now all this he is doing, I feel, is to externalize the internal problems,
Problems.
and that is coming out, so, which I call as the cultural revolution 2.0. So let us look at the next one. Yeah, it's a very controversial plan to
Yeah.
send 30,000 jobless youth to villages to find work.
Just like he did. I mean, he went through himself.
No, he too went because under that garb of cultural revolution. Actually, Mao and his fourth wife,
Yeah.
Jiang Qing, were purging all his opponents. You know,
Gang of Four.
so let's talk on that. The first cultural revolution. First cultural revolution क्यों हुआ था? Great Leap Forward had failed miserably. हालांकि he won the 62 war against India, but still the Great Leap Forward collapsed dramatically, and there were a lot of opponents to Mao Zedong within the CPC. So he blamed the people that they have not understood communism properly, and so they were not able to contribute to the success of the Great Leap Forward. So the cultural revolution and all, he targeted the intelligent people. You know, Jiang Qing, Mao's fourth wife, who was actually an actress, and she came into prominence here. इसका एक famous statement है, Wengong Wu Wei. Wengong Wu Wei. It means attack with reason and defend with force. It
Force.
led to a virtual civil war, 66 to 68. It's only when you scrounge and find out details about the cultural revolution that it hits you. Started in Shanghai and spread everywhere. At that time, the Red Guards were the youth. Okay. And they attacked the other factions of the Communist Party who were not in league with him. There were some local PLA units also involved, and there was a lot of fighting and bloodshed. Lakhs and lakhs of people died. Shanghai, Chongqing, Zhuzhou, Shanxi, Shandong, Heilongjiang, Sara, Kafi, or most of the cities on the eastern seaboard were affected. Till the party elders scolded Mao and his wife in 68, and they passed orders through the CMC to PLA to curb it. And but remember, even then, during 66, 67, 68, he tried to externalize. 67, India, Nathula, पिट गए चले गए. 67 उसके बाद रशिया, उसूरी, पिट गए चले गए. He's made his attempt to externalize to divert attention. But he used the cover of the Cultural Revolution for purges. Like Xi Jinping in his first two tenures has used the cover of anti-corruption crusade to purge whoever he felt was opposing him or becoming too strong for him. Okay. Now Xi faces a daunting task. Who will be his red guards? PLA, factions, PAP. What if these jobless people refuse to go there? Rural में है क्या? See, when Mao did it, your economy, rural and urban, was almost the same. कोई फर्क नहीं
Same.
था. आज के तारीख में वो तो रूरल से पूरे अर्बन में आ रहे हैं जॉब खोजते हुए. आप कह रहे हो नहीं, आप रूरल में जाओ काम करने के लिए.
Why would he leave his comfortable surrounding and go?
But after Mao, this was not the second time. 1989 में Tiananmen Square incident के बाद Deng Xiaoping had sent students to the rural area, basically to get them indoctrinated back into the Chinese ways. But then, like I've always said, the Tiananmen incident and other things were restricted just to Beijing.
Yeah.
It was not spread out everywhere, because it was more because Hua Guofeng had died. He was the earlier premier, and he was more for being open and giving more freedom. Right. And he passed away. वो निकाल दिया था उसको, and then he passed away. But and so जब उसका क्रिमेशन वगैरह हुआ था in Beijing, वहीं से शुरू हुआ था, and restricted to Beijing. But this time now it is all over the cities. Yeah, like what happened in the civil war and the first cultural revolution. The unrest is everywhere. She has attempted it before also. 2019, 20, 21, 22. There have been no takers. That time, he kept telling that there are no jobs here, go to rural area. कोई गए ही नहीं, और वैसे भी जा ही नहीं पाते क्योंकि उसने जीरो कोविड कर दिया, तो आप निकल के कहाँ जाओगे? Maybe 2019 he knew that it is going to become a pandemic, and rural health services are not there good enough there. He wanted them to go there. The other was he must be wanting to push them there कि वहाँ मर भी जाएंगे, किसी को पता भी नहीं लगेगा. Because even today we do not know how many in rural areas have died of COVID in China.
There's no medical facility, correct, sir?
Yeah. So this time, will the youth go quietly? That's the moot point. And this indicates multiple headwinds internally. If he's going to take this drastic step, and he's asking companies also, some companies also on the eastern seaboard are telling, go to the rural area. Rural area and do what?
That's my question, sir.
And do what? Nothing. क्या करेंगे? पिगरी चलाएंगे? एग्रीकल्चर एरेबल लैंड तो उतना ही है, and you have been misusing water, so you can't increase your arable land. So you have a discontent which is simmering within the youth. It was evident during the 20th Congress when it took place also. Even now, off and on, you keep hearing on the net of some place, some strike which is taking place. Though he's already targeted quite a lot of the student leaders who participated in various cities, but still it is going on. Party ke andar bhi there it is appears as if there are people who are not happy with the way, the direction he is taking. You see, Mao was red, so you were still following your typical communism or socialism, that the state looked after the people. Today you are wanting to become more red than Mao, minus that socialistic characteristic. You're not looking after your people. They have to pay for everything, and it is very expensive. China is not a easy place to stay in. It's quite costly. So what is he going to do? Is he going to again externalize? He did that in 67. Is he going to again externalize? There are only two targets now that he has at the moment. One is India. The other is Taiwan, either the mainland or, like I had mentioned, the three islands which are east
Matsu,
of
Kinmen.
अपना Kinmen, Wushu and Matsu. नीचे से ऊपर. Will he go there? What is he going to do? He is desperate. So these are really troubling times, not just for China, because the troubling times with China means he always hits out. It implies that he is going to impact regional security. It will happen. And as the decoupling takes place, I had mentioned earlier also, even friend shoring, near shoring, they are looking at India. दुकान तो काफी लोग बंद कर करके आ रहे हैं अभी. So it is basically India and the Southeast Asian countries, essentially India, Vietnam, Thailand, Philippines, and Indonesia. They are not touching Malaysia as yet. I have not heard of them shifting towards Malaysia as yet. They may shift. I have not heard them. Thailand, yes. Vietnam, yes. Philippines, to a little extent. Indonesia, to some extent. And to a large extent, they are very keen on shifting, and people are shifting and coming into India. Like Samsung has nothing now left in China. Apple, by the end of this year, by middle of next year, they'll be having nothing in China. These are very big blows, and a lot of these factories are closing shop and shifting. They are selling it off and going away. They are selling off their factory to a local this thing and walking out. So, what we will need, apart from, of course, obviously you got to be strong, not just along the border, because he's going to, it's not necessary that he will target you physically. It will be the internal disturbances.
Gray zone.
Yeah, internally.
Manipur.
And he will ride along with these narrative battles of George Soros. And he'll make use of all the subverted woke liberalists who are available in India, a dime a dozen. He'll make use of them. So you got to be careful about that. Concurrently, economically, we also need to decouple our dependencies on China. Because if you have these dependencies, like I'll give one example of API for your pharmaceutical, like what he did in the beginning of the COVID when he didn't give you, he can squeeze you again, he will not give you. वो कौन सा कोई rules based order को follow करता है? वो कोई rules follow नहीं करता. He only looks at rules of how it can benefit him. So even when the cultural revolution is on, when he is going to squeeze you, he will squeeze you. Along with that, certain other issues, let us also look at, like the West, friend shoring and near shoring. Let's reshift our own dependencies. Let us also do our own friend shoring and near shoring. किसने रोका है? जो ऊपर जा रहा है अभी 10 बिलियन प्लस, उसको काटना शुरू कर दो. 50 बिलियन भी आ जाए ना, 50% भी आप एक साल में काट दो, उसके घुटने टिक जाएंगे.
Easy.
घुटने टिक जाएंगे because he doesn't have the hold thereafter on. And by the way, is Oppo, Realme, Vivo and all have collapsed. Samsung is the number one in India today. And people are saying that once complete comes in, like, by the way, the next phone is going to be launched in India, Apple. And once Apple shuts shop there and builds up everything in the next 2 to 3 years, Samsung and Apple will be the iPhone will be the ones which will be taking a large chunk of Indian market. So we have to now look at the cultural revolution 2.0 to karega, because how long can he keep using anti-corruption drive?
Correct.
People there also have woken up to it. See, within the CPC also people have woken up to it.
थोड़ी बदमाशी they will tolerate, but
yeah, but 2 साल 2 tenure हो गए ना पूरे. So now it is to make the people learn, send them back. कहीं ये जो वहां जाते हैं, कहीं ये अपना कुछ लॉन्ग मार्च 2.0 ना करते.
रेड बुक पकड़ के लाल किताब पकड़.
कि भाई हम करते हैं लॉन्ग मार्च 2.0 तुम्हारे अगेंस्ट यूथ. And it's interesting time, and this is the time when we need to make up our clarity on a national security strategy. When I say national security strategy, I keep telling security does not mean just uniform. No,
Mm.
it has multiple domains, all that constitute and build up towards your comprehensive national power. You got to get your security, and you got to be very clear on what is your long term. उसके basis पे medium and short term आप क्या strategies follow
What are your
करोगे.
goals? Mm.
Because like the honorable PM has given you a vision, 2047, 75th 100th anniversary of India being independence, what they want India to be like. Now work backwards and then look at what are your, how can you strategize that vision within this kind of a turbulent VUCA world, where you have these things going on, not just from the west, the immediate west and north, but further west and north also, further west also. Though we know that in the long term, George Soros will not be there, but we need to look at, if not George Soros, who will be there.
Billy Boy?
Hmm?
Billy Boy?
बिली बॉय, बिली बॉय तो ना, वो नहीं होगा. बट किसको लाएंगे?
कोई और
उसने
दिख नहीं रहा था.
वर्थ नोटिंग कि उसने अपने विल में किसको दिया है ये पैसा.
That'll be interesting.
बट बिली गेट्स तो हो सकता है, बिली बॉय हो सकता है, नॉट बीडी बॉय बट बिली बॉय.
नहीं,
यस,
Billy Boy sir.
या बिली
आजकल
बॉय.
काफी बोल रहा है
अब
तो.
बोलेगा ना यार. उसका प्रॉब्लम ये है that the statement that he had given, the population of the world has to be reduced by 3 trillion.
3 billion.
And all these are going on. And in one of the talk shows, I heard someone say that they had been talking since 1974
Yep.
in the US and West to control the population. And what is most dangerous, I think I shared that video with you, where they are talking of people who are not contributing to the global economy should be the ones who should be targeted.
Yeah. Who decides that is another question.
Yeah. You keep them suppressed and then say that they don't contribute. That's the dangerous.
I mean, somebody said this in a show that I was watching, and he said, you first come to India, you make us poor, and then laugh at us for being poor.
Being नहीं, वो तो उसका अफ्रीकन्स का भी वही है ना.
Yeah.
When these people came to Africa, we had the land, they had the Bible. And by the time we opened our eyes, we had the Bible and they had the land.
That's the land. I know, yeah, that's it. Sir, this was very interesting. I have a few questions, sir. Can I take this
Yeah,
off?
most shoot.
I have a few questions, which is
Yeah.
going to be a little more onto the philosophical side of China, because thanks to you, I've been getting a little education in that direction. I never thought they had to be, the Chinese were that deep.
Always remember, you have to know your enemy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, sir.
To know
Absolutely.
your enemy, you must know where he comes from and what he thinks
What he
and what is his
thinks.
culture. What is his
Exactly.
upbringing?
Now, considering this, know your enemy, sir. The Chinese like to work on something, as we were discussing yesterday, as a positive she for themselves.
Yeah.
They want to keep the factor that, boss, the thing, we need to use the other for our benefit, and that's a standard thing. So we call it deception, we call it mind games,
That is
whatever it is.
also what judo is all about, no?
Huh.
When
Use
he
his strength
throws
against.
a punch
Yeah.
at you, you use his force to throw him
Yeah.
down.
Yeah. So the positive she is what they want to have. And guys, it's not XI she, it is SHI she. So just FYI.
It's
Now,
also sometimes written as CHI.
CHI,
Yeah,
Chi.
Chi.
The factor that today China is in a position where he's had to reset his Chi literally every step of the way in the past 3 years. In the short term, I'm saying this. In the long term, 2012 onwards, BRI, this, that, she was pretty solid. He had the Italians coming on to the BRI. I mean, that was a big victory for them. Today, his situation is more reactionary. With India, you wanted to come up to a position of strength. You tried something on the border. There's been a slap back. Now you've got, pushback, and now you're resetting your Shi again. You're resetting it to a certain point. USA is a different story because that's a long term battle. It's not something now, it's been on since the 60s. So there's always that turmoil. But how does China now work on a reactionary mode of Xi when he's having to actually change his direction every now and again to try and come to a positivity, which tells you that he's not on a positive.
Yeah, in my honest opinion, if he had followed what Tang Xiaoping had said, that go slowly, because if you look at judo also, you don't attack, you let the other person attack you, or if you're going to attack, you have to unsettle the other person. That is the most important point. If you're throwing a punch also, your shoulder is not supposed to move forward
Yeah.
because it unbalances your center of gravity. Okay. So now, in a similar manner, is Shi. When you're going to use your Chi, you have to be first clear that the Chi is with you. They made the cardinal error of assuming that the 2008 economic crisis in the West, the Chi had started flowing in their direction
Yeah,
positive.
direction.
That
Hmm.
made the biggest error. And from there, that's why I said no, the false sense of power and rising.
Hmm. Hmm.
But
Hmm.
you look at
Hmm.
their graph of their economy from 2012, it is going down. And thereafter, it is at that time, it was gradual. And post around 2018, 2019, it has become very steep and there is no revival. And I'm sure they are facing recession as much as the West is facing. I don't agree with the IMF figures of 12% because if
Hmm.
80% of his economy is based on export,
Exports.
there are no takers in the West. So if the Western
Exactly.
economy saying are facing 60 to 70% चांस ऑफ रिसेशन मतलब पैसे है नहीं वहां पे और पैसे वहां पे है ही नहीं तो इसका क्या होगा
खरीद कौन रहा है फिर?
nobody buying and when there's nobody buying there is no internal consumption then how can you say that he has 12% chance of recession
And 5.4% GDP growth.
yeah is there something that इसका एक बड़ा interesting I had read a report what they are doing it had come from Hong Kong uh, just to show to the people that they're doing trade they are doing what is known as 24-hour circuit.
Shanghai to Hong Kong, Hong Kong to Shanghai, export import
Empty
both.
contain no,
Data.
no, empty containers are taken
Yeah.
from Shanghai or wherever places comes to Hong Kong. You shed your empty containers out there. Take
So I guess there's been a little bit of a power outage in Sir's house. I'm sure he'll get back. But let me complete the story. So what they do is they take these containers, from let's say a port in Shanghai or something like that. They have these empty containers in a ship. So in that port, they'll say, "Bhai, export has happened. 150 or 200 or 1000 or 500 or whatever amount of containers full of this and this and this has gone out." They would take these containers, sail it for 24 hours right down to Hong Kong, where those containers will be offloaded, and then fresh empty containers will be filled up. And then Hong Kong will show an import, of course, and an export, and say, ki, bhai, these many, another 500-700 containers have gone back. And
Yeah,
uh,
I'm sorry, but the
so
lights went out here.
Yeah, I was just completing the story, sir. That the container turnaround, they would bring it to Hong
Yeah,
Kong, empty out the containers, and then show import and export at the same time.
correct. So empty containers from the eastern seaboard taken to Hong Kong, unloaded in Hong Kong, empty containers of Hong Kong taken on and brought to this port and show that there is a import export on where there's nothing on, because the game is given away. Like one of your shows, Kandari had mentioned about the container index,
Yeah,
availability index. So I had gone on and got on to that line. So when you go into the container availability index, anything above zero point 0.5 means there's nothing going on, and they are touching 7.7 at the moment.
7.
Means there's nothing going on. And in the as far as the this thing is concerned, uh, cost of the container has reduced almost 1.5 times here. That means the supply is more than the demand, which indicates to you there is no trade which is on here. क्योंकि trade होता, so why would the cost of containers be like that? That is the problem. That is where I said, I keep saying that deception is in their blood. ये इस तरह से करते रहेंगे. But yeah, there are other ways to identify and see it and tell कि भाई तुम झूठ बोल रहे हो यार. अब वो IMF वगैरह और UN वगैरह को तो खूब पैसे दे देता है, वो चुप हो जाते हैं और जो ये बोलते हैं मान
ग्रोथ दिखा देते हैं.
हाँ, मान लेते हैं कि भाई इतना ये चल रहा है इनका. So that is the sad part.
Correct.
क्योंकि अब तुम ग्लोबल इकोनॉमी के साथ छेड़छाड़ कर, यू डूइंग छेड़छाड़ विद ग्लोबल इकोनॉमी, है ना. सो दैट इज द होल इशू. और पूछो क्वेश्चन.
Yes, sir. Last, mera sawal before we get into audience questions, and guys, please do send in your questions. Lots are here, lots more are required. Before that, like the video. Most critical, we've crossed 20,000 subscribers with your help to Dev Talks, and I'm really proud of being a part of this particular community. And it's really nice that we are able to actually discuss these issues. So please like the video, subscribe. If you can support the Dev Talks efforts, the QR code is right here, or you can become a member or send us a super sticker or super chat. Sir, my question to you is one very simple thing. Why agriculture, sir? Is he falling short of food, or are they, the last time when the Cultural Revolution happened, they went hungry, to yaar sabko bhejo. Why agriculture?
I feel it is a targeted way to target those student leaders कि तुम लोग थे, अभी तुमको सॉर्ट आउट करता हूँ. स्टूडेंट लीडर्स और स्टूडेंट्स को तो ही कांट टारगेट देम अंडर एंटी करप्शन ड्राइव ना.
So this is basically the COVID protest वाले बेचारे सब getting.
उन सबका तो फेशियल रिकग्निशन के साथ तो सारा कुछ पता है, कौन कौन थे, कितने कितने थे. अब निकालेगा उनको under the garb of indoctrination. So that is what I am saying now. Who are his red guards? उधर तो तुमने red guards ले लिया था to get after all these people and to push them on various issues. Now who are your red guards? उधर तो red guard was the youth, the indoctrinated youth who were with Mao, college going students, सीनियर हायर सेकेंडरी स्कूल लेवल के इक्विवेलेंट के जो स्टूडेंट्स थे, कॉलेज के स्टूडेंट्स थे. यहाँ तो जो तुम्हारे अगेंस्ट जा रहे हैं यूथ, वो तो तुम्हारे कॉलेज स्टूडेंट्स ही हैं यार. तो अब रेड गार्ड को कहां से लेके आओगे तुम इक्विवेलेंट? कौन है तुम्हारा रेड गार्ड? पुलिस, पीएपी, उनके भी कोई रिश्तेदार होंगे वहां पे हु आर अफेक्टेड यार. हम जिस तरह से फिशर्स की बात करते हैं विद इन पाकिस्तान ऑफ प्रो एंड एंटी इमरान, विच लास्ट टाइम आई हैड सेड शुड बी प्रो शरिया एंड एंटी एंड द मॉडरेट इस्लाम फेज. राइट, मुशर्रफ का मॉडरेट इस्लाम फेस, उधर पे क्या होगा? एंड PAP is also armed, PLA is also armed, they come from these local people only.
And that
उनके
whatever
बंदे
secret
अगर
police,
इफेक्ट हो रहे हैं, उनके
that
बंदे
secret
अगर
police
इफेक्ट
is
हो रहे
also
हैं तो वो
armed.
करेगा.
Correct.
So that is my concern. And whenever he faces internally, he has tried. Always we have examples of externalizing.
So you want to switch back? We can hold off you for a minute. That's not a problem.
Just a minute, I just see.
We can do that, guys. One thing always try and see with China today. Whatever's happening with China is very interesting. Why? Because he's basically rewriting the game. He's now in a place and time where he's trying to tell his people, yeah, listen, whatever you guys did before with me is something that I will not accept. Okay, you guys did the protest. Okay, I had to cut out the zero COVID policy and this that, but I remember everything. So that's what Sir has actually brought out to us. It's a very interesting and important thing that we need to understand that, bossy, the challenge for Xi Jinping today. And I put out a small clip of a talk that was done by Janil Narayanan, on the channel, where the topic of the small 3 minute clip was: is China now facing a 2.5 front war? The two front we know is India and Taiwan, and the half front which is building up inside. So be careful what you wish for for India, because it might just happen to you, and that's what is happening to China today. So let's get into some questions, sir, audience questions, and let's see what they have to say.
Yeah, sorry, a light is coming.
Arey nahin, sir, not a problem. This all stuff keeps on happening. It's part of the game. Okay, I think have you hung up by
Very
any?
interesting question, Harshdeep.
Yes, sir. He
But
says,
अगर
do you think there are some influential people in China that are trying to take out Xi Jinping with the help of the CIA?
I don't think CIA has got much of footprint because the Chinese have eliminated almost all, if not most, of their CIA sources. They had managed to get the hands on, and that was what I think the CIA went after
Yeah.
Snowden for, and most of these people have been eliminated. But
Even Joe
yes,
Biden,
pardon?
even Joe Biden has been accused of that, sir, that he
Yeah.
had given out certain names.
Now it is there. They could do it. I don't deny they won't do it. That they're not capable of doing it. But beyond she who, किसको लाओगे? Are you going to get back Li Keqiang
Mm.
and someone else under him, who's fifth generation? कायदे से उनके सीक्वेंस में अभी सिक्स्थ जनरेशन होना था. Are you going to get Sung Kai out or Hun Chunwa out back again? See, even when Tang Xiaoping was to come back, he was rehabilitated after the purge towards the early 70s, and he started holding positions within the governments. The problem that she has left China with, the biggest problem, is that he has removed all experience from governance. I had said in my earlier talk also, there was a system put in place by Tang Xiaoping that at about around the 40s, the chap would come into the central committee. By about 5 6 years, from them selected whom they felt they were good, came into the Politburo, and then groomed further, and then in the mid 50s they came into the Politburo Standing Committee to understand all the governance, and they were also made members of CPPCC to know what the provinces talk about and everything, understand all that, and then move in as the, if selected, to come in as the premier or the chairman. Okay, there's no post as president. हम president बोल देते हैं because that's a Western thing. The leader is the chairman of the Communist Party of China. There's no post as president. Chairman and premier. इसने तो पूरा तोड़ दिया है, कोई है ही नहीं. आप करंट इनको भी ले लो, इनको कोई, दे हैव नॉट फंक्शनड एनीवेयर इन एनी ऑफ दीज प्लेसेस. वन और टू ऑफ देम, इफ आई एम नॉट मिस्टेकन, आर स्ट्रेट inductees.
Even the
तो
army chap.
अब इसको निकालोगे. अब ली शांगफू, वी वर मेकिंग सो मच, और ली शांगफू आ गया. अब यार, अगर एक्स इसरो चीफ को मैं डिफेंस मिनिस्टर बना देता हूँ, आप घास डालोगे उसको?
ISRO chief is
Won't
damn
you
good
know?
as an ISRO chief, not a defense minister.
No, but will you make him a defense minister?
Exactly.
Will you make him a defense minister? इसने उसको बना रखा है. So I'm sure a lot of people within the PLA also must be having a grouse.
Someday I want to talk to you about the warlordism in PLA, and that's
Yeah,
something that
they
we
must
will
be
take up at one
very
day.
angry. वो पिछला वाला तो कम से कम रॉकेट फोर्स का हेड था ना, जिसको आपने
Active
डिफेंस मिनिस्टर बनाया. He was the head of the rocket force.
but artillery से
He
निकला,
served,
rocket force में गया.
he
He's
served in the PLA,
yeah,
then
yeah.
went as the head of the second artillery, went into second artillery, then became the head of the second artillery, rechristened as rocket force,
Exactly.
Wang Fenghe, and then you made him the defense minister. ये तो कुछ नहीं यार, कभी जिंदगी में स्पेस के अलावा, स्पेस लॉन्च के अलावा कुछ किया नहीं है, उसको आपने डिफेंस मिनिस्टर बना रखा है. Only on sense of loyalty. So the biggest problem is, if he gets, now he is working towards only me and nobody else, and I will be there in chair till I die. That was the other worry I have, that uska bhi cultural revolution 1.0 carried on till Mao died. It carried on till 76, till Mao died. 10 साल इसलिए चला था. अगर वो और जिंदा रहता तो और चलता. इसका कल्चरल रेवोल्यूशन 2.0 कब तक चलेगा? Till he dies, or till he is eliminated, or they clip his wings. Will they clip his wings? Or will he get eliminated like you're mentioning? Then who?
Then who?
So when all these influential people take a call, they will look into this aspect also. कि भाई इसको निकालता हूं तो किसको लाऊंगा मैं? Who will now be the president and the premier? What happens to, it's not just about eliminating him. What happens to all his people whom he has placed in all those places of power? उन सब का क्या करोगे यार? उनको भी पर्ज करोगे, उनका भी कल्चरल रेवोल्यूशन करोगे, कल्चरल रेवोल्यूशन 3.0. So they have to, you have to look at it in the larger perspective, and I'm sure there are intelligent people in the Communist Party of China who must be looking at this. Maybe they have drawn red lines and he has not crossed that red line as yet. Who knows?
The this conversation, obviously, Naveen, I don't think John is with us today, but Naveen mentioned something to John which I want to take up with you on a little different thing. He says, what do they mean by when the Chinese refer to heavens? Can you tell us the
Heavens is
concept of
the
Tanzia?
concept of heaven is Tianxia, which means that firstly, like the ancient times, they feel that the ruler of China, because the Communist Party is not any democratic party, it is the ruler of China. The chairman of the Communist Party is the ruler of China, and this is something which is given to him by God, which is the heaven they refer to. And all under the heaven, that means all under the king, that is their empire.
The emperor.
He is the emperor, and everything else under the heavens is his. So that is the heaven they refer to.
We are all Janwars, and Xi Jinping is the only.
Yeah, civilized person. Yeah.
And is it true that Xi is not nurturing a future emperor of China? I mean, he's not immortal.
Oh, no, no, no. He can never have anyone. Hun Chunhua, everyone was thinking that he will come into the Politburo. वो तो कहाँ है ही नहीं. Politburo, standing committee छोड़ो,
क्या किया
Politburo में ही
सर?
नहीं है.
रिटायर कर दिया, क्या किया उसको?
हाँ, he's sideline. He's not even in the central committee. Politburo में भी नहीं है, कहीं नहीं है. सुंगन काय था, उसको तो जेल में डाल दिया.
वो तो गया.
हुनचुनवा people, चिनमिनेर का भी खूब आया था कि बीजिंग का मेयर एंड ही इज डूइंग वेल, एंड चोंकिंग में भी गया, चिनमिनेर वाज डूइंग वेल, गायब. Anyone whom he thinks can be a competition to him is written off. It is loyalty to him and him alone.
Harshdeep, thank you so much for joining as a member. Welcome to the community. Arjun says, Jai Hind General Sir and Adibhai, do you think the problem we are having in Manipur is created by the Arakan army, which is the proxy of China to destabilize India?
Yeah,
Arakan army,
Arakan is nowhere near India. Arakan has borders with Bangladesh, and that is
Bangladesh.
the Rohingya. This is the North Myanmar and could be sponsored by them. The North Myanmar is like the olden days, late 19th century का जो होता था US का Wild West. So North Myanmar is like Wild West. There are multiple armies of the various regions who are functioning there. A lot of them have their offices in China, and this is the cookies from Myanmar, the Muslim Meteis, and the cookies who are there. उनके बीच में ये चल रहा है. So there are a lot of illegal migrants from Myanmar who come over to India. A lot of them come over looking for a better life. North Myanmar has nothing to offer.
I mean, Kumar, you've also asked the same question, so I guess you've got your answer. Uh, Jagpreet Saab says, Chinese take arbitrary decisions without assessing their long-term effect. That's the way first cultural revolution failed. One child policy also disaster. So will be the BRI and the new second cultural revolution.
The problem with the first cultural revolution was it was not something for long term. It was for
The
Mao to
change.
purge his opponents.
Yeah.
Mao to purge his opponents. And they had openly said to kill. So the Red Guards were weaponized and killed until it went out of hand, and then they had to bring in PLA to stop it.
First to
And
identify and then to kill.
yeah, and एक जो बंदा बच गया था, Lin Piao,
Hmm.
he was eliminated through an air crash, orchestrated air crash. And Lin Piao had support from PLAF. And that is why for so many decades, PLAF was always kept subordinate to the ground force. Because the CPC did not trust, or I would say Mao and Tang Xiaoping did not trust the PLAF. So that was the problem with PLAF. BRI, I would say, I won't say Chinese. The arbitrary decision of BRI was taken by Xi Jinping.
Hmm.
Otherwise, the CPC was to go the gradual way. He went the aggressive way and destroyed not only the other economies. I take it that the BRI has also hit their economies. One child policy, yes, but at that point it was a short term thing, but they implemented it very aggressively by Tang Xiaoping. वो कोई
Yeah.
दूध का दूल्हा नहीं था. That time they were faced with shortage of food.
Yeah.
They had so much of famine, multiple famines through the Great Leap Forward and Cultural Revolution.
The
So
sick,
this was a wonky idea.
the
कि
sick
भाई
man of Asia.
वन चाइल्ड कर दो, बच्चा एक ही होगा, फीडिंग के नहीं होंगे. So you're very right. This was a very arbitrary decision taken without long-term effect. Second cultural revolution is also, you're right, an arbitrary decision. वहां रूरल में जाके करेगा क्या? कुछ तो है नहीं वहां पे भी. So you're very right. But BRI is not the CPCs. BRI is Xi Jinping, because I call him a megalomaniac who wanted to show that he was the one who rejuvenated China. Jalbadi kar diya, paying the penalty. Imagine there are almost $1 trillion or something they have given away in BRI
Yeah.
in these 10 years of his
More than that, sir.
rule, initial 10 years of his rule, with no money coming back here. Who can take such a big hit? China's deep pocket or no deep pocket, you can't take such a hit. So you can see economy किस तरह से उसका economy nose dive कर गया.
I mean, he also has another point about decoupling. He says, sir, decoupling with China is always talked about in major debates. On the other hand, in India, but on the contrary, our trade is increasing. So it's up to the government to take steps and this and that.
Batra Saab, that is what I am saying. You have to do it. You have to do it. When you know fully well that he does geo-economic coercion, why keep the levers in his hands? And you have seen the way he affected our pharmaceutical trade in the early days of the COVID when he didn't give you the APIs. You have to take out your dependencies from him. You're very right.
Naveen, thanks so much for your contribution. He says, Janusa asking as a novice on Chinese polity. We see a two-party system in US, multi-party system in India. CCP is CCP a monolith, or there are some ideological factions within the CCP?
No, no, no. Within the CCP, the factions are nothing on ideological.
Yeah, this is
This
just
you
on
should know.
control.
But they have different cliques.
Yeah,
You have
yeah.
the Communist Youth League clique, you have the Shanghai clique of Jiang Zemin, टंग शॉपिंग का बीजिंग क्लिक था अभी वो वीक है एंड नाउ यू हैव दी हेनान और फूजियान का तुम बोलो क्लिक अपना शी जिनपिंग का क्लिक अभी आ गया सो दे हैव क्लिक्स बिकॉज like the term he had used earlier, Aadi warlords. These are their lords, the aristocracy, the heads of the cliques.
And they own stuff, huh? They're not like jokers like
Yeah.
that.
So it is, as far as the CCP is concerned, it is it's a monolith structure, but within that you have the power
Faction.
brokers, the cliques who are power brokers.
So, Anikesh says, sir, is it even possible to indoctrinate the population like Mao's times? Because the Chinese have tasted capitalism. There is no way that they will agree to go back into Mao willingly. How will people react to it?
Yeah. First thing is they have broken away from Mao communism, I would say. China is not a communist country at all. With the opening up which Deng Xiaoping had done and said it's good to be rich, the state provides for nothing to any people. You have to buy everything, you have to pay for everything. पहले typical communism, womb to tomb, the government looks after. That is your typical communism. That was what was there in Mao's time. Good, bad, indifferent, that was what was there in Mao's time. इनके टाइम में वो कुछ है नहीं. So while that's what I had mentioned. While he's going red and becoming more red like Mao, it is more in the sense of taking all powers under him only, becoming more and more a dictator, a bigger dictator and autocrat than Mao. But you're right. What is he going to teach? कम्युनिज्म तो सिखा नहीं सकता तो इंडोक्ट्रिनेट क्या करेगा? So that is where I had questioned that will the people willingly go? If they don't go, who are the red cards to enforce this? And you're right to question how will people react? And that was where I was laughingly asking, will these people then do a long march? Alluding to what Mao had done as a long march to counter Chiang Kai-shek. It is open to question how much will he be able to implement? Who will do it? PAP, PLA, क्या होगा?
Now, this is something very interesting and very important, sir.
एक एक मिनट I think so.
Yeah. Uh, Actually, the factor that sir is talking about this second cultural revolution is very interesting because there is one little thing in China that
But
they're
I'm
very worried about.
very sorry. Wife is not in town here. She's gone out. Somebody has come. I need to
Okay, sir.
get some OTP from my wife to tell the delivery boy.
No
My
problem.
sincere apologies.
No problem, sir. We'll wait. So as I was saying, guys, the problem in China today is that the conformity of the government that was there pre-COVID. Okay, pre-COVID, there was a sincerity amongst the people ki yaar, government is saying something, they might be saying it, this and that. They've given us so much in terms of a life, in terms of employment, in terms of good, setup and good clean cities and this and that. So we need to listen to the government. Today, somewhere down the line, with the zero COVID actually experience behind them, the Chinese people are today talking about the factor that, yeah, listen, we've gone through so much. We've been locked in for 3 years. We don't have money anymore. My banks, if I want to take out money, they have issues and I can't even send my money abroad and this and that. my real estate that I invested in, all my life savings I put inside my real estate, that is gone down the tube. I've got no jobs, or my children going forward in the future don't have jobs. So there is a big challenge as far as China is concerned in terms of the people itself. It is not the simple living China that was there before. Who said, "यार, government is good, पैसे आ रहे हैं, हमारा employment is there, cities are there, I buy 3 houses and I'm fine." If you look at the social structure of a Chinese person today in the Chinese society, he's losing all the things that he was proud of. So the second cultural revolution, although we mention it in a joke, but it is damn serious. It could happen anytime. Now, if you ask me or sir, and I'll take this liberty to answer on sir's behalf, कि sir ये कब होएगा? Nobody knows that.
Apologize once again. Sorry,
No, not
wife ka
also.
dil.
I basically said that this guy is basically turned off the structure of Chinese society, which Chinese people used to be proud about. कि भाई मेरे पास घर है, काम है, पैसे हैं, सब कुछ है. अब वो सारी चीजें जा रही हैं. So the cultural revolution is he will have to do something really strong to control them. Otherwise, he's going to be in challenge.
I will give you a beautiful example. China became aggressive without realizing that with the West, and without realizing his dependency complete for his economy was on the West. आंखें दिखाने लगा, they started pulling their hands back on high end things, and अब तो पूरा ही ज़्यादा ही दादागिरी किया तो पूरा ही निकाल दिया. What has happened to the European economy? आंखें दिखाए रशिया को, little realizing that your complete dependency on everything was based on Russia. Your agriculture produce, you require fertilizers that come from Russia. Your grains come from Russia and Ukraine.
You don't cut
Your
your
energy
fuel and
comes from
energy.
Russia. Your
Yeah.
minerals come from Russia. For all your फैक्ट्रियां बंद हो रही हैं, क्यों? क्योंकि बिजली नहीं है. So that has impacted. Exactly the same thing he did it earlier, and I don't think the US and the West learnt a lesson from the Chinese. That the Chinese did that aggression against the US and the West when their total economic dependency was on the West. Yes, they were interdependent, but it was not necessary for the West to be able to be totally dependent on him. They could divert it to any other country,
Yeah.
which they're doing now. अब कितना तुम चोला बदल लो, बोलोगे नहीं नहीं नहीं, goody two shoes, ये वो, but the decoupling and the nearshoring, friendshoring goes on. Now, they had a social, Deng Xiaoping had started a social contract with the people of China after the Tiananmen, and then when they were opening up, that I will provide, the Communist Party of China will provide for your economic well-being. You will not question the continued rule of the Communist Party on China and curbing of your freedom
Yeah.
and rights.
You will do as I say.
You will do as I say. ठीक है. अब there's no economy. Is not only you will do as I say, I will do with you whatever I want to do with you. If I think also that you are anti me. This is the problem and the crisis. That's why I say it's not just Pakistan. China is also at a crossroad today. करे तो क्या करे?
Exactly.
किधर जाए?
So the next question is pretty interesting, and a lot of people get very worried when they see something like this. And I really want your honest opinion. It says your view on the attempt by China to recruit Gorkhas.
पहले भी किया था.
कितने
कौन
टाइम
गोरखा
से कर रहे
जाना?
हैं? Sorry, thank you. I've been holding
कौन
this up.
गोरखा जाना चाहता है वहां पे यार?
पहुंच
कोई
जाएगा.
गोरखा जाना ही नहीं चाहता. Have you heard of any Nepali going and working in bulk, working in China? No? So why will you go?
The most interesting part, guys, is that the Chinese have said this every year at the same time. You look at the standoff here. 1 month after the standoff started, they said we are recruiting Gorkha soldiers. Last year, they said we are recruiting Gorkha soldiers, and as a matter of fact, we are training them. एक सोल्जर बाहर नहीं निकला इनका अभी तक ट्रेन होके. Not one. So Thank you for that, sir. SN Sab says, what could be the purpose of the 15-minute cities, which are basically fortifying civilian localities, socio-political experiment implemented in some of the Chinese cities?
Can you elaborate a little what he means by
Yeah,
these 15-minute
I am
cities?
not sure as well. I thought you would know, sir. Sorry, I'm a little off. SN Sab, if you have any details, please. Okay, Stinger 101. He says 15-minute city is a plan is a social experiment to control the population growth and density in cities to keep vigil and watch and create more introvert city to the outside world to keep their minds in control.
तो वो तो गुंडागर्दी हो गई ना. आई वुड जस्ट रेट इट एज गुंडागर्दी. Population control. On one side you are telling people, that's why you're telling them to go away to the rural areas, but rural में कोई job नहीं है. You don't want people to come inside. तो क्या होगा? जो अंदर हैं उनको भी खिला नहीं पा रहे हो आप, उनके पास भी पैसे नहीं हैं. So it is more to be able to manage surveillance, I think, on these people, to keep a very tight control on them so that they don't go anti Xi Jinping. But it's not so easy. See, what is going to be the last straw on the camel's back is anyone's guess.
I don't. This 15-minute thing is known as something else. If anybody remembers, I'll. If not, I'm going to put it in the comments as soon as I remember it. There's another concept to this, sir. This is about spreading of population. He had said this, that cities are getting too overcrowded and they need to spread them out and
नहीं
all that
वो
stuff,
it is that just outside 15 minutes outside the city,
right?
जैसे अपने दिल्ली वगैरह में किया हुआ है.
I
But they
forget.
not
I
take up
forget
for
what.
it now.
Yeah,
It is ये सब कहानियां हैं. In those areas, since 2009, when rather than invest money into stabilizing the economy, he had tried to China had tried to control the double digit growth by creating a whole lot of ghost cities and ghost townships all around. So in by under this guard, he will forcefully make people to go and live there, is my reading. That they'll make them live there and start making use of that. But there is nothing available there. There's nobody there. Shopping complexes are empty. So it, it cannot happen overnight. Unless if you're sending them there, they have to have some wherewithal to live there. So that would be the more pressing thing, but it doesn't solve the problem.
so last one, but an interesting one. It says, is there any way, Shritik asks, is there any way for India to exploit social communal fault lines within China by the way of psy-ops or information warfare? He covertly does this to us, so we must also respond in kind.
Kothari Saab, I had mentioned earlier also when we were doing the narrative wars that you have to first have your foundation, base, on which you will build your narrative. So first, apna banaiye na. What is Bharat? What is the concept of Bharat? What is your foundation? Accordingly, create a story for what you feel China should be, which will have takers in China. And then you build your narrative on that. And that narrative has to keep shifting as the facts shift. Since we don't have, and there are multiple narratives of what India is, our own basis of what India, or I would rather call it Bharat, is fractured and has a lot of fissures.
Hmm.
Each part of the society thinks about itself that ki ye hai. And so building narratives across these fissures becomes easy because you already have a fissured version of what you are supposed to be. So what I am saying is create your foundational Bharat, that this is what is the multicultural, multilingual, multiple society Bharat all about. Once that foundation is there, you concurrently start looking at how to create the foundation of what you feel China should be, and not what the Communist Party of China says that this is what is China. They are also a multicultural, multilinguistic society,
Exactly. Mm.
not a single linguistic society, which they are trying to make it,
Mm.
pushing Han and Mandarin everywhere. No, that is not the original society of China. Having done that and built upon it with the people, that is how you can do psyops. That is how information warfare is done. अगर वो नहीं है तो उसके बगैर तुम्हारे इंफॉर्मेशन वॉरफेयर करना भी शुरू करोगे, यू वोंट हैव टेकर्स. एंड व्हाई आई एम सेइंग बिल्ड योर फाउंडेशन, शील्ड एंड स्वॉर्ड. फौज में ऑलवेज बोलते हैं वन लेग ऑन द ग्राउंड, दैट लेग ऑन द ग्राउंड इज योर शील्ड. सो द शील्ड टू प्रोटेक्ट यू अगेंस्ट their attacks on you. Please remember, if you start attacking him, he is also going to increase his
Hit
attacks
you.
on you. So you
Yeah.
need your shield. And your shield is this concept of what is Bharat.
I'm gonna have you talk to me about the Indian narrative. Let's do a little build up to this and see what we can
Ah,
come up with in terms of
yes,
what
yes,
should
yes, we can do
narrative
that.
be.
We'll do it
And
next week.
yeah, we can plan this. What should the Indian narrative be? What is the story that we should be telling the world? Uh, uh, what's the difference between India, Bharat, Hindustan, many other concepts that have come across? So always, this was an eye opener. As a matter of fact, the past few weeks I've been on a little bit of a reading journey to China, if I may, my journey through China in written by people's books. It's interesting that as you start reading these books, you get a fairer idea of what's happening within and why are they doing these certain things. Because there is one bottom line of China that I've understood is that they do think a lot. Somewhere down the line in the implementation phase, they have challenges, and so the plans on paper look very great. And what we see as publicized by China is most of those plans on paper. When it actually comes down onto the ground, there are challenges that the Chinese do face, and that's where the entire Chinese game of deception comes into play, as you've very rightly brought out, sir. Thank you so much. I have just a short comment, which is a compliment to you, which says, General Sir, the enemy might have dreaded your bullets, but we absolutely love the bullet points of your information you present every week. Thank you for such an organized presentation.
Thank you, Tejas bhai. Thank you very much.
Right. Now, guys, just an announcement. Next week is going to be General Sir's last show with us for the next month. Shorter than a month. So we'll be back somewhere in the second week of June. He's traveling for some personal things, personal jobs. So my request to all of you guys watching this and who'll be watching in the future, let's give a big goodbye to General by being there for the Indian narrative episode, where we
Yes,
will learn the difference between Bharat and Hindustan and India and a lot more.
Bharat, Hindustan, India. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Once again, lovely talking to you and
Thank
learning from you.
you. Always a pleasure, Adi. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys. Don't forget to like before you leave. Jai Hind.
Jai Bharat.
Jai Bharat. Okay. Yes.